This time on No Not the Mind Probe, episode number 75, Manpower, and power rerouting, hopefully.
Ooh. Welcome to No, Not the Mind Probe. Coming to you. That's a DJ. I was doing a DJ because there's a DJ in this one, right? No, not the Mind Probe. Coming to you.
Right, that guy. Okay.
Coming to you on the 8s. Also, I like the title of this episode, Manpower. We're going to get a lot of crossover with people looking for gay porn.
Good. You know what?
A tapped market.
If someone's on the internet looking for porn, that's
which apparently
the time
you can do.
when you want to get your product in front of them because they're ready to take a diversion and go another way. They're like, oh, let me consider this podcast.
I was going to watch this orgy of young, attractive men, but instead I'm going to watch these two middle-aged guys talk about Doctor Who. I didn't make the connection, but I think I will. Yeah, I mean, that's what you do. And that's what you, by the way, hear on this podcast. Is you watch two middle-aged men watch and rank every episode, every single Doctor Who story ever. My name is John Grant, and I am a lifelong Doctor Who fan. I've been watching it for 38 years. Period.
My name is Porter Mason. John, who just spoke, you just heard him. He's been asking me to watch. That's right. Yeah. He's been asking me to watch Doctor Who for 26 years. About 2.5 years ago, I finally said yes. By the way, I wanted to mention for those of you watching on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/mindprobe show, I think.
Ampersand, $, ampersand.
Yeah. It's right. youtube.com at mindprobe show. Mm-hmm. I want to apologize because look, behind the curtain, behind the velvet curtain of the Mind Probe. Well, sometimes we record episodes in batches. This is one of those days.
You should have changed.
And we didn't. So I'm just mentioning to you, for those of you follow along and subscribe on YouTube, and if you don't get on there right now, you could see this happening. Mm-hmm. We are wearing the same thing in episode 75 as we did in episode 74. That's right. This is going to go on IMDb as a goof. This is going to be a goof. It's one of the goofs. And it's okay.
I thought we hired Mrs. Probe as continuity, and that she was going to take Polaroids throughout all the episodes, and then be like, "No, Porter, you were wearing this, and you came in from the left in that last episode." But we can't.
No,
she's unavailable.
Mrs. Probe is unavailable because she is thankfully able to put my daughters to bed tonight instead of me while I record this very important podcast.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad you clarified that, though, because the worry is that people would think we don't own any other clothes.
Yes, that's not true.
And they're going to be like, oh, wow. And then they're going to start to be like, wait, are they making a living off of this podcast? And then they'll become very worried about us. And then maybe start a GoFundMe. I don't know. It could have maybe worked in our favor. But
that's true.
I wouldn't want that to happen. We can't afford other clothes, folks.
We choose not to wear them, but we can afford them. That's a personal choice.
We could get them. Yeah.
Look, each episode of this podcast, we look at 2 Doctor Who stories. We go through the new series in order, and then John acts as our Doctor Who sommelier and pairs that with a classic story. John, what are we watching? What have we just watched, and what will we be talking about this episode?
Yeah. So, as noted, the theme is manpower. Folks, it's actually person power, but we're just playing on the familiarity of the phrase, and we certainly are not making it. Any human being can be consumed for power. So whatever your gender or whatever your race, you can all be cannibalized in one way or another. And that's what's happening in these episodes. It's one of those tenuous connections, maybe a blink and you miss it connection. But yes, this is no joke, folks. We've reached the end of the Amy and Rory.
I've been burned before. Don't.
This is it. This is their fond farewell. The mid-season finale. Angels take Manhattan. We got the wonderful River song showing up to see him on out, and of course, as you may have guessed from the title, also the angels, the weeping angels, have arrived. And so so we have the fun farewell of Amy and Rory, and I've paired that with another Humans as Fuel story. This is and it's been a while, as was mentioned in the close to our last episode. It's been a while since we've seen the old Sixth Doctor and Perry. personal favorites here around the old probe offices. But we have their season. It's actually their season finale too. Actually, in this season, I don't even know how to describe it. It's just called Revelation of the Daleks.
All right, so let's recap these episodes. First, the Angels take Manhattan. This is series 7 now of the NuWho. It is episode number 5. We have the 11th Doctor, Amy, Rory, River, their child, checking in, saying hello, and of course we have Brian Williams, not that Brian Williams, but Brian Williams, Rory's dad, also hanging out with us.
Wait, is he?
Yeah, I think so.
I guess maybe at the
is he not there at all? Okay, anyway,
I don't know. He was in the last one.
Stephen Moffat,
yeah,
wrote this. I kind of forgot he is still the showrunner.
Oh yeah, you got a ways to go on that one.
Yeah. Okay. And there we go. It's the 230th story. It aired on the 29th of September 2012. We were just gearing up for a big election.
Yeah,
right around that time.
When we still had hope. When hope and change was still a thing.
Well, it was one looking great. Well, no, we had the hope wasn't the problem though. Actually, what was the issue there was, or the issue between now and then was, at that time, our biggest fear was that Mitt Romney might become president. Like that was the big scary thing that could happen.
Right. And then we would just plunge into a dystopia. And now we'd all be like, if Mitt Romney were elected president, we'd all be like,
oh, thank God. All right. Well, and then of course what follows that point is here's a clip from Angels in Manhattan.
Mm-hmm.
Landing lights. We have a signal. Locking on.
The Angels are predators. They're deadly. What do you want with them?
I'm a collector. What collector could resist these? I'm only human.
That's exactly what they're thinking.
What's that? What's happening? Is it an earthquake? What is this?
Oh, you bad boy. You could burn New York.
What does that mean?
It means, Mr. Grail, just you wait till my husband gets home.
Got it. Just for that line. Yeah. You feel like,
I mean,
I do like
Amy's last episode, but we're playing a clip from River. But the River is a bigger, more fun part of this episode in a lot of ways. So,
and I mean, it is. I think that sort of highlights. I love Stephen Moffat. I think he's a brilliant writer. I think he's very creative and clever, as we've talked about in the past before. And one of the things I like about him, and you see that at a couple points in this episode, is he clearly gets a line or an idea in his head, and he's like, I'm gonna get to that point. Yeah. And I'm sure at some point he's like, wait till my husband gets here. And he's like, how do I get this in the story? And it makes for a fantastic entrance with the music and all that kind of stuff. And then clearly he at some point thought, oh, the Statue of Liberty is an angel. And it's like, as soon as it was set in New York, I don't know if you thought right at the beginning of the story, I just remember when it first came on, I was like, oh, it's going to be an angel. And, and it is. It's like, and I kind of love that about Moffat. He's just like, jam the story. And I mean, yeah, I may have to go through some hoops, or it may not make full sense, but boy, that's a good image, and I'm going to use it. And I like that.
Yeah. Anyway. It works backwards from moments or set pieces and images, definitely. So what happens? Well, Amy and Rory and the Doctor hanging out in New York. I forget why they were there in the first place.
I think they're just hanging out.
They're just hanging out.
Like going, I guess, I mean, yeah, I think it is like hey, every once in a while we could actually go somewhere fun and just do something. Now, why you would go to Central Park in the present day? Sure. They were actually filming in New York. That's the first time ever we've had Doctor Who film in New York.
And there wasn't, a bunch of crazed fans chasing them
there was apparently it was and I think they were I think I remember reading an article, they were talking about it, and they were just like the British reporters from Doctor Who magazine or something were there, and there were crowds of people like screaming for Matt Smith and Karen Gillan, and they're just like, I think one of the reporters who are old school Doctor Who fans were like, "What world is this? Where like,
Did you
this
go
is a
check it
show
out?
that was like for nerds for like 50 years, and then suddenly it's like huge in New York City, and they're like, this is crazy." Yeah,
Did you go check it out? You could have taken a train up and checked it out.
I didn't know they were filming. It was probably
Oh,
announced
okay.
on the Twitters, and I don't Twitter. I don't Twitter my life away.
Well, first of all, I want to mention there's a short conversation in which they imply that Karen Gillan has crow's feet or something. It's like she's like 25 years old at this
Hideously
point. And
ugly
like,
and ancient.
she's really getting up there.
Falling apart. That's why they dumped her as the actress. They were like, you're too old.
That's ridiculous. So anyway, the doctor is reading a pulp detective novel with a brash female heroine, and Rory kind of like wanders off by himself and is sent into the
Gets
past.
some copy. Yeah. And then an angel gets him. Yeah.
So then they don't notice Rory's gone. And then
Not right.
So then Rory meets up with River. We're excited to see River again, and we find that she's effectively Melody Malone, but she wrote the book.
She wrote the book. She's basically masquerading as like a Sam Spade detective in period New York. Yeah.
Which is great because the opener teaser for the whole thing was sort of a unknown actor.
Yeah.
And kind of playing kind of a gumshoe or this kind of an era novel. And he was fine, but I was a little worried. It was like, oh, are we going to have to they don't always do America well.
Right. Yeah.
And I was like, oh, am I going to have to watch this? I don't know how good this guy is. So River in this role is just so much moxie and fun. And it's great.
It is. It's like a perfect, you're just like, it's one of those things where you're just like, oh yeah, what a great, she would be a great this. Like, this is so and Alex Kingston is really good at it. And it's just like,
she's great. I have to watch other stuff that she's in because she's really enjoyable. And for whatever reason, I mean, I was actually expecting at the end of this episode, maybe she's gonna just hang out for a while, or maybe she will. But I could really, I could have a whole season just the two of them. They're great.
Yeah.
Anyway, we find out that that's her. So a bunch of stuff comes up from that. One of which is we find out later that this book is actually a book of the future. It's essentially River's diary,
right?
Her reading
about
now
what's about
in narrative form, in novel form.
Yeah.
It's real. And so as Amy's kind of reading it aloud, the doctor's like, stop, because if you once you read this thing, it becomes real almost. It was
once we know
it's in
with it,
the future, we can't stop it. We can't change it. And he's like, you might read that Rory's dead. And so I thought that was an interesting little hook, again, a Moffat thing of that's interesting. You can imagine being in a writer's room and that coming out and oh, let's do something with that. Let's work that in. I don't know how fully that's explored, but for a while they really play with it, and it's cool.
Yeah.
And so
again, it's like it's any time travel story you've got. It's always it does time paradoxes and stuff. They don't make sense. They're inherently nonsensical. And if you don't establish rules, then it's just dumb. It's just magic, and just anything can happen. And so, I always appreciate the effort to be even if it's not consistent across stories, and there's lots of always explanations for it, but it's okay, there is a rule here. There's going to be some time travel stuff, and here's the rule, everybody. It's okay, fine. That's good. We can all follow the rule. Yeah.
So then a couple things happen. They're trying to get to Rory, but what they discover is, first of all, they're told, which I don't think has ever been mentioned before, that it's very hard to move around time travel wise in New York because it's a particular kind of I don't know. There's a lot
of stuff happens there, I think, right
there. So
there's a lot of time
hard to get to an exact point. And so the doctor and Amy are headed back to try to find Rory. And then River and Rory, we find some angels. We do get some shots, as you mentioned, of the Statue of Liberty as an angel. The angels are everywhere in Manhattan, I guess.
Now, I mean,
now that idea, just really quick, that idea is not really explored.
No,
the idea that they're all around, and they're that's not really.
And the problem, I mean, again, I'm not going to fault him too much for it, because I think he's just that. I have to do that image. I have to show the Statue of Liberty.
It was worth showing.
Of course, in a city of however many million of people, the angels cannot move when they're being looked at. So this would imply that there was a moment where no one was looking at the Statue of Liberty.
Well, I guess maybe not. So that's why nothing can ever happen. It's just there. So
Yeah. So
anyway,
but then it shows up at the side of a building, and then it's like, oh, and it does it twice, and no one seems to notice. But
so
it's a great image.
What we find is that there's a guy collecting angels, and this guy is played by
Mike McShane.
Friar Tuck from the Robin Hood series, member of Whose Lines Is It Anyway from the old Clive Anderson days, Mike McShane. So it was good to see him, and he's lost some weight too.
Yeah, he looks a little healthier. Not much healthier, but
he's a good actor. So
he is good. A little underused in this episode, I thought.
Yeah. I noticed him, but yeah, he's not a huge part. Rory gets thrown down the basement with the baby angels, which
Creepy.
again I imagine was thought of as like, whoa, cherubs, like let's get him with the cherubs. When the angels are very scary, and obviously they've been brought back several times because they're a wonderful character. Like I would say one of the Doctor Who monsters that like that's gonna live on. What a great, you could write. Yeah, it's just a great concept.
Hands down one of the best new series monsters.
But this is an area where the rules are tricky. The original introduction, the rules were clear, and the whole story was structured such that it was rock solid.
Yeah.
As we start to play around with them more, it's like, so wait, like if you can't even blink, you're down there lighting matches in the dark for like minutes. It's dark in there, so wouldn't you just be murdered like immediately? Like
right.
So I get a little. It's and I understand again if they are in a whole city, if you are in a whole room of them, if you can't really focus on. That's one of many things happening in this episode.
Yeah,
that logic gets hard to be lost, but like it loses a little bit of effect. Like don't seem as scary because it's like, well, you don't. It's not just blinking this time. It's like, nah, you're fine. Like
yeah.
The angels are out sightseeing in addition to murdering you. They want to like get on the subway,
messing with you a little bit.
Maybe
they're playing around.
So then Amy and Rory meet up with River. They manage to get there. Don't they go through ancient China for some reason at some point too?
To lock on to so the Doctor can't get to her in New York because of the time thing, but to lock on to her, they need some kind of like signal, and then that signal is like she's like, "Oh, I'm in a room full of Ming vases," and so he goes back to ancient China and puts like it somehow connects the vase in the room to her. Yeah.
So
it's
then
cute.
I thought an exploration of the clever idea with the book is to say we can't read the book because we don't want to know what happens, but we obviously need to use it because River's written this such that we can use it. And so Amy often has these great ideas, and Amy was the one who has the idea of like chapter headings. Read the names of the chapters. That'll tell you nominally what's happening, but not exactly, so it can guide us. So I thought that was great.
Yeah, the Roman in the cellar. I was like, that's a good one. That's how they find it.
And we ultimately find out, and I did not get this, but I got it because John told me the linking theme of the episodes, which is that the angels, it's the angels doing it, right? The angels are gathering victims and using their life energy to power what? I don't know.
Themselves. So the angels consume the potential life. They zap you back to the past, and then you live your life to death. Then you live back up to that moment, and somehow they harness the potential energy of that. And then somehow they put them all in this building, and maybe they keep doing it or something, but they turn them into a battery farm, I think is the Doctor's term for it. Basically, somehow once you get trapped in this building, they just keep stealing your energy, your potential energy or something.
So now we get to a bunch of stuff happening. We'll try to say this and see if it all makes sense. We see Rory. Earlier in the episode, I think we saw old Rory in bed.
Right.
And he's about to die, or does die.
He does die. And everyone's just like, oh, he's died again.
Right. And when it's happening, I'm like,
if you don't like Rory dying, then this is not a good episode.
But he says he hasn't seen Amy in years. Okay. So this is tough. We figure out the battery farm stuff. And basically the Doctor and River seem surprisingly hopeless with this. And I guess partly because the book's there and whatever. But Amy and Rory are the ones that say like, the River and the Doctor are saying we would need some kind of a paradox to kind of short circuit things in this time way, and that would get us basically, if we do that, it takes you back to the beginning of anything where the paradox would have led to it, because it can't work. It cuts off a loop of the universe, and
it unravels everything that happened. Yeah.
And so Rory says, then he goes up on the roof, and he's basically like, I'm going to jump off now. So it's like, oh, we get 2 Rory deaths for one.
More deaths.
And we get even more. So, and, Amy runs up there and was like, no, well, you can't do this. And so they ultimately decide, and it's a very nice scene.
Mm-hmm.
And they say, it's a very nice co-suicide scene, double suicide.
Beautiful.
They basically say,
your kids, like, make sure you kill yourself with
she's
your
like, I
spouse.
can't watch this. She gets what he's saying.
Right.
He's like, I can't watch this. And then Ashley determines that you come up there. And again, he said, I haven't seen you in years. So if they die together, that
breaks
again, it ends the whole thing.
Yeah.
It works. They're short-circuited back to in the graveyard, which I guess that's where they were at the beginning. I don't remember that.
Yeah, there was some reason that they popped back to the graveyard. Yeah. The doctor had been there when he couldn't land in New York, and he got diverted to the graveyard for some reason. And then, they went back to it when it snapped back. So they get there. Great. Let's go and have 10 more years of adventures with Rory and Amy, wondering if their love can really. Were you mad? Were you like, oh, they killed themselves and they're still there, and like, John lied to me?
I did not. I will say this: when I watched this, I did not know it was their last episode.
Okay.
I really thought the one prior, as we discussed last episode, wasn't going to be their last one. And so I was a little. And then when River came in, I was like, oh, this is like a River episode.
Yeah.
It's mainly about her. And then, this is the reason why we're sort of happy to move on with them. When old Rory's dead, didn't phase me at all. I'm like, okay, I'm sure that happens. Nothing. And when they jump off the roof, I'm like, jump off the roof. It'll work. You're never going to die. This isn't going to happen. So I'm not worried about this. So then they came back. And then when they're in the graveyard, Rory, which has been shown earlier in the episode, Rory's name is on a grave in the graveyard.
Right.
And he sees it.
And the date of his death.
He sees it. He then turns. It doesn't even seem he turns around, but
the angel
gets an angel grabs him.
Yeah.
Which would then again get us back into, okay, now Rory's been caught.
Right.
And so.
And it can't be fixed because he's read his death date.
Yes.
So
and
that's
so
literally.
Amy says I'm going to go there too.
Right.
Now, and I want to talk more about what this means. So they do that. The doctor's basically saying, no, you can't do that. No, you can't do that.
It'll
and then
make me
ultimately
sad.
he gets pushed. And it's like, why can't you do that? He's like, because then I'll never see you again.
Right. Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, well, then that's not the reason. Like, I can't do it for that.
Sorry.
And River gets it much more and is like, saying goodbye to her mom and dad. I mean, that's never really dealt with enough that that's her mom and dad, but like, she says goodbye. And they go. So and then I guess we'll say briefly at the end of the episode, River and the doctor talk, and she says, I'm not going to go with you, which was disappointing to me. I like watching them. And then she's very insistent. Like, you cannot be alone. And what this reminded me of was that that nominal plot line from the beginning of the season when he was supposed to be alone that we never really dealt with. It's like, he's never alone. He hasn't been alone this whole season. And it just sort of made me think like, wow, this season and a half was really not handled as well for probably any number of practical reasons than the introduction of Amy and all that stuff. It's
well, they tell the show, right? They break the Western, the dinosaurs one ends with, and then the Western one, Amy talks about, oh, you've been alone too long.
Yeah.
And it's changed you. And it's
they're
like
trying to make it happen, but it's like, we are not seeing what you're
that. Yeah. Right. Whereas, you told us it happened, but we should see it. That would be better.
Whereas with like the Amy plot line, we kept going back and seeing her being like, should I go back to my real life? I'm about to get married, this thing. And pieces of the Rose, parts were handled well with that too. But there were aspects of the Rose thing that were more like this, where it's like, we would leave stuff for like 3 seasons and then come back. We're like, hey, remember this? It's like, not really. I guess this is something we're supposed to be tracking. Like, but she's very clear. You cannot be alone. That was interesting.
Yeah.
And then then there's a nice moment where River says, by the way, I let Amy write the afterword to the book. So
Amy becomes a publisher, I think, or something.
Yeah.
And so
he runs back and gets the last page of the book. I don't remember the last page being. Oh, he rips out the last page.
He doesn't like reading.
Saw that now.
He doesn't like.
So that was a great little connection.
Yeah.
So I want to go back though. Amy going with the angels. So what does that mean?
So she asks him. She says, "If I get taken by the angels, do I go back to the same time that Rory did?" Right. So they kick Rory back to the past, like Sally Sparrow's friend in the first one in Blink. She goes back in time and then she lives her life. So Sherhurst is like, if I get touched by the same angel that touched him, will I also get sent back to the same time? Which actually is, because we remember when we meet them in Blink, Martha and the Doctor have both been sent back to the same time. So it does hold together. And she's like, okay, I'll be with Rory. So I will still be with Rory. And then they live their whole lives together, right? And then they must die around that day.
But we don't know where they went.
No.
Somewhere in New York, sure. I guess.
Presumably, yeah. I guess somewhere. No, they end up... They could go anywhere, I suppose, but I think the implication is New York, yeah.
But they're not trapped by the angel, right? They're just sent back.
No, but they have to. I mean, it is established that they have to die on that date, right?
Sure.
Because they even show her, I think, show up after. She lives longer.
So that's the final. Now, have there been any big finish about that part of Amy and Rory's life or something?
No, there is a Rory spinoff about his time when he was the last Centurion, the thousands of years he was waiting for her. There's a couple bits with that. They have not done anything with her yet, but I'm sure at some point we will. But yeah, no, he and so far they have not reappeared.
Well, it did seem pretty final, but yeah, I can't help but wondering. I wish these last two episodes had somehow been one, or even if it was a two-parter. Yeah, and somehow combine some of the best moments and parts of both of these, and yeah.
Well, there's no room. I mean, there's no room for the plot to breathe here, right? I mean, as you missed sort of what the angel thing was all about, and it's a couple of set pieces, and like they're running around an apartment, and it's just like, and it's most of the episode is taken up by. And I have to say, watching it, I was just like, oh, Rory dies twice, and oh, Amy. They both get to make impassioned speeches about how important they are to each other twice. It's just like, oh, and then we've already seen this before. Then we know they love each other. So it's like, oh, this is so.
Well, that's why
both where they act their socks off. They're excellent performances.
Yeah, they're great.
The speeches are beautiful, but it's just kind of like, all right, we know.
And again, having just gone through this with the last episode.
Exactly.
With beautiful moments and ruminating on should they still be doing this. I feel like there's somehow this could have gone together. There's any number of reasons why not, I'm sure. But yeah, that's all. I liked it, but it was just unfortunate that was so long coming. And again, that River just sort of was like, oh, by the way, she's here, and it's like, and she's great, and like, I don't know. So
well, and you get there's some kind of plot going on with Mike McShane's character and Angels, and the Angels are still in New York, I guess. I don't know. The Paradox maybe broke the Angels control thing or whatever, but that's kind of resolved very quickly. You've got a guest star in Mike McShane, who's a pretty good actor and well known, and he just kind of disappears. It's like, oh, yeah, well, we forgot about him, and it's just like, again, I think maybe that's the annoyance of it, and to repeat the. Yes, Amy and Rory really love each other. Like, we've definitely got this down. It maybe would have been more of a twist if she'd been like, oh, Rory's gone. Oh, well.
All right. Well, you know what, John? You know what we should do? Mm-hmm. Let's move on
to
this is a little frustrating. Superior. Let's move on to a really tightly scripted, well-plotted classic episode.
That is just bubbling with joy and happiness. I think
joy and happiness, just really likable characters.
Yeah, frolicking.
Revelation of the Daleks. So this is season 22, the 6th story of that year. It is story number 142. It is blessedly a two-parter, though you pointed out there are two 45-minute episodes, so it's a little longer, but thank goodness it's just a two-parter.
Yeah.
It aired the 23rd and the 30th of March, 1985. So why don't we check out a clip. Oh, and sorry, we had mentioned it is the Sixth Doctor and Perry. We mentioned at the beginning of the episode.
Yep.
And Davros checking in. Yep. Davros checking in to say hi. So let's hear a clip from the Revelation of the Daleks.
Mm-hmm. I am known as the Great Healer. A somewhat flippant title, perhaps, but not without foundation. I have conquered the diseases that brought their victims here. in every way. I have complied with the wishes of those who came in anticipation of one day being returned.
But never in their worst nightmares did any of them expect to come back as Daleks.
All the resting ones I have used were people of status, ambition. They would understand, especially as I have given them the opportunity to become masters of the universe.
With you as their emperor. But what of the lesser intellects? Or will they be left to rot?
You should know me better than that, Doctor. I never waste a valuable commodity. The humanoid form makes an excellent concentrated protein. This part of the galaxy is developing quickly. Famine was one of its major problems.
You've turned them into food?
A scheme that has earned me great acclaim.
But did you bother to tell anyone they might be eating their own relatives?
Certainly not! That would have created what I believe is termed consumer resistance.
Hilarious. Yep.
All right.
If you like ranting, this is an episode for you. You're like, we need more ranting on TV.
That's right.
Yeah, you got it. Davros would be an amazing Fox News personality. Like,
yes,
Tucker Carlson, Davros ranting about the green M&M would just
like,
be amazing.
How about the green M&M? Can you give us like 20 minutes of ranting on that? No problem. And I can just go. I'm going to recount the plot, which I'm going to be very clear. I did not get any of this while watching the show, but in reading the Wikipedia description, here's what I gather this was about. And part of that is because some things aren't clear and explained well. And part of it is like, this did not hold my attention and I could not focus on it to bother to hear the details when they were mentioned. But so I got some of it, but I certainly didn't understand that this was what was happening. But apparently,
that's interesting because this will be curious to see your reaction to this because maybe you didn't pay enough attention to become enraged by it.
No, yeah, it didn't make me like, yeah. But that didn't win it much. My esteem
well, this doesn't incite blind fury in me. I think it's a good one.
So anyway, the TARDIS lands on basically a graveyard planet.
Necros, yes.
Necros, okay. This is the Sixth Doctor, and Perry's here. The Doctor is immediately attacked by a mutant.
Yep.
What Perry kills.
Fun fact on that one: the mutant, the claim. And I think it's bull. I don't think it's true. But the claim has been that the producer approached Laurence Olivier to play that part. And that he was kind of interested to do a little cameo. And it didn't work out. I find that difficult to believe. But again, it opens with a very nice lot of screaming. It's just a violent and intense screaming scene that starts.
Yeah.
And then Perry beats him to death.
And I didn't understand why they were there. When they got there, the doctor said, like, admonish Perry for dressing a certain way. And it was like, oh, you have to dress this way.
Right.
Anyway.
The doctor's friend Stengos was dead, and they're having a little funeral for him. And
okay. Okay, well, so then before this guy dies, the mutant says, the great healer is using him as a genetic experiment. Okay. So then inside the funeral home, we meet our lovable disc jockey, who apparently is there because some people who are in like they're not quite dead.
Suspended animation.
They're suspended. Yeah, they're Walt Disneyfied and they're in some cryogenics there.
Allegedly Walt Disney.
And so the disc jockey is playing songs to those people. That was not really clear to me. What was clear to me is that they were just cutting to this disc jockey. And then they kind of explained it.
They explained it in episode 2. So about 50 minutes in, they're like, this guy. It's like, okay.
But they were very happy with themselves with this. They thought it was very funny.
Hilarious.
This Chucky character.
And he is it's named Alexei Sale. He apparently at the time was a well-known comedian. I think a show called The Young Ones.
He's doing what he's going to do. I mean, he's not like nothing. It's fine. I don't know. It's not funny, but I don't think it's his fault necessarily. He was told to go and do this thing. He did it. Like, I blame the author, the showrunner,
As
here.
you should. We will talk about him.
So then another 2 characters are introduced who we don't know. And they're trying to get in. They're on the same planet.
Yeah.
And they're trying to find, I guess, the same person. I did not know that. Stengos, who is the woman's father.
Yeah.
They're on this little trek, like kind of in tunnels looking for people. I didn't know what they were like. I was presented with all these things. Like, I don't know these misconnected things that are happening. I don't know why anything is happening.
Right.
Okay. What we ultimately find out is that this one they're calling the Great Healer is actually Davros, the creator of the Daleks, right? And Davros,
with his head in a bowl, just like sort of.
Sorry, say it again.
His head just in a little plastic tube.
Heads in a bowl, right?
Yeah,
kind of like
a head in a tube. Yeah,
kind of like Krang from Teenage Mutant Ninja
a very
Turtles.
very macabre appearance. Yeah,
and he's doing his Davros thing. He's acting up a storm too, like you said, lots of speeches. What he's doing here is on the funeral planet. He's taking all the bodies and not quite dead people and repurposing them to make a new army of Daleks, as he would do. Why wouldn't he do that?
Yeah. What else is he going to do?
How did he get there? Who knows? I don't know. So we probably should stop him. Now, I don't know that either the Doctor or the 2 revolutionaries are necessarily aware of this. I think the revolutionaries are just kind of like, something happened with my father that's not right, and we're trying to find him. But
right.
I don't think
it's not clear where they came from, who they are, how they got there. Is there
apparently their Stengos's daughter is.
Well, yeah, we know there's some connection, but like, do they live on the planet? How do they get this suspicion? They basically suspect that something
they don't live
to
there.
His body, but it's not clear why they would think that, and then why they would break in with guns to figure it out. Right? If you were like,
the guy.
Hey, I wonder if my aunt's body is buried in that cemetery, and then you broke in with a machine gun and started digging it up.
yeah. So they find the guy, and he is
that, right?
just ahead. And so what we find out, he's there, and he basically tells them what's happening and says, like, look, they're using my body, they're repurposing us into Daleks. You have to kill me before this happens. So okay.
I'll stop. In an intense scene. That is a very intense crescendo scene. The guy playing him is a disgusting special effect, but the guy playing him is really going for it. And it's like she's the other actress, she's trying to do the thing, and she has to kill her father, basically. It's like this very intense scene. But this time watching, I was like, this should have gone at like the end. Like, it's 20 minutes in, and like this is like a finale. Like, oh, we've built up to this moment of these people that we know and care about, and this is very intense. But it's like, I don't know who this woman is. I don't care that much about her, and I don't care about her father. And it's like, okay, fine. No, it's in a weird place.
Well, the tone is all messed up too, as it often is with these 6 Sector stories. Yeah. That's honestly why I wish I could go back and say, like, Delta and the Bannermen, let's put it in the top 10, because at least the tone was just straight throughout. It was just like ridiculousness throughout.
Knew what they were doing.
Other characters who are thrown in early on, you meet, like I said, are basically the people who work on the funeral planet. And it's like a jerk boss and a doting assistant and a couple of other people.
Jerk boss played by Clive Swift, who famous from Keeping Up Appearances as Hyacinth's husband, and then also from we've seen him earlier with Voyage of the Damned. He was the Earth expert. Remember the Titanic one? He was the sort of bumbling guy who got it all wrong about Earth, and then they left Mr. Copper. Yeah.
And I'm saying that the assistant is Jenny Thomason, who was on Upstairs, Downstairs. I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't know her, but yeah, this is an all-star cast, because Eleanor Braun, who's a big deal, is in it too.
So they're in a different show. Like they're doing this kind of like comic thing. Again, they're doing fine. Like there's things about it. It's like I was telling John offline, it reminded me, speaking of Mark Gatiss, who, by the way, checking in, John, is Mark Gatiss gay? Is
still gay? Yeah,
still gay.
That is the current. We got feelers out, but I think he's still there.
It reminded me of his old show, League of Gentlemen. Like they looked like that. This sort of big costumes made to look like almost like grotesque people,
Yeah.
but having these very business-like, humorous conversations. And yeah, she's playing this character who she's obsessed with her boss. Her boss is a jerk to everyone. We find out that the
A
boss is
womanizer.
serving
Yeah.
the great healer, Davros. So they're there too.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's like I don't know what they're doing. Like I just anyway.
Well, they're doing a funeral for the wife of the president of the galaxy,
Yes,
who's on his way, and then we abandon that plot line pretty fast.
right. So what ultimately happened? Obviously, the Doctor's trying to stop this from all happening.
Then you've got the factory owner and the assassin.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, we want to kill Davros.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to stop the Daleks from going on. The assassin, the knight.
Yes.
The knight. I forgot.
Orsini.
He's like, ultimately is the biggest plot point. He's this, future knight, right? These weren't knights, and they're, what do you call knight's assistant? I forget.
The squire.
The squire. In the future, this is what they look like, right? And so that was interesting, but they still have the same, they're sent on quests and there's honor. So
trying to be valiant someone.
Yeah. So ultimately we figure out that they're down in the bowels of this thing. They know they need to stop it, but how to do it? He says, well, I have a mom.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to have to go down with the ship here, but I'm willing to do it because I'd like my last action to be killing Davros and stopping this. So they do that. They all run to get out somehow. I don't know how that's happening, but we got to run. There's a moment with Perry and the Doctor that they try to really hit home that Perry will doesn't want to leave without the Doctor, which is resolved within 30 seconds. It just
remember the other Daleks have shown up too, right? So remember that the Daleks from Skaro have come, and we find out that there's two factions now of Daleks. This will come back. This is the one thing to take away from this.
So and then the knight makes this whole big speech about, at least I can die knowing I will stop Davros. And then literally 10 seconds later, they're like, oh no, Davros did get away.
He flew away.
Jesus, man. Okay, well, and then the Doctor tries to sort of salvage it. Some say, yes, but look, he killed this whole generation of these proto-Daleks. So look, he didn't die in vain and whatever. But it's just like, why? You just heard his dying wish. Do we need to have that? I mean, not that I care, but that guy had some gravitas to him again. Everybody's doing fine. It's just a mess.
Hard.
I was all put together. And basically, then the assistant, I would want to mention a big thing. She finally turns on her boss and does take him out and kills him.
She's manipulated by Davros, right? He's trying to mess with her for, I guess, entertainment. It's not clear why he gives a damn about this woman.
Yeah, so then they blow up the whole planet and everyone's like, oh, thank goodness. And then they're like, oh, wait a minute. This was actually our entire livelihood was working on this planet. So now what are we supposed to do? And the Doctor's like, there's flowers.
Grow flowers.
And
apparently
then
flowers loaded with protein. I don't know.
So the reason, talking back through the plot and understanding part of it, I can understand where you're saying it's so bleak. And it is. So I guess part of it is well, even if it had been successfully able to hold my attention and I would have paid attention, it would have been like, ugh, God, what is this?
Yeah.
But I couldn't keep it together. I don't know what's going on and I care so little and no one is compelling me to want to know anymore. So I was sort of taking it in somehow in the background, but whatever. And then I'm always thrown off by Perry, which you mentioned is oh, she's this sex symbol and thrown in there is okay. I mean, they don't really use her as that. They're not even.
No, she's wearing a big blue. She looks like a blueberry, wandering around like a giant blobby coat. It's well, she's pretty hot. Even I can acknowledge she's an attractive woman. I feel like you should have done more with her.
It's just sort of weird. And then she's doing her. I only know this because you told me. Apparently, she's attempting to do a Baltimore accent, which she is not doing. So I don't know why. I mean, it's fine, whatever. But anyway, there's that. It was just a mess, just a whole huge mess.
I may divert a little bit from fan orthodoxy here, but I despise this episode. It is so. We didn't mention the fact that the Sixth Doctor and Perry don't even show up to the main plot until the second episode. They spend 45 minutes trying to get into the place. They climb over a wall, and then a statue falls on the Doctor. And it's then another 10 minutes into the next episode before they even realize what's going on. He doesn't even find out about Davros until almost the very end. They don't see the Daleks. I will start with the good parts. Davros, the performance. Davros is the guy performing.
Sure.
Davros is acting his socks off, and they make him scary in the sense of like he's a head in a bubble and he's still manipulating the entire situation, right? Like he's made powerful by his mind games and his ability to do that. It's a good Terry Malloy is playing Davros at this point. It's a good performance. It's a second go at it. He'll sort of carry on in the audios, and he does one more. As this, we'll see his first one in a few weeks. So that's nice. The director's Graham Harper. He directed Caves of Androzani, and this episode, it's got some interest for 1980s Doctor Who. It's got some interesting directorial flair. He goes on. He's the only original series director to direct the new stuff. But otherwise, those are the only reasonably good points. This is so I had when as has been mentioned before, Doctor Who was being sold on VHS, and before I had all the episodes and stuff like that, I would watch it on PBS. And when I moved from New Hampshire to Virginia when I was a kid, and they didn't have Doctor Who on PBS in Virginia, so I taped on VHS cassette. I was trying to have a little store, a little hit. You know, if I need a little hit of Doctor Who, I had a bump.
Yeah.
And so I had a VHS tape, and at the time, the long play VHS was 6 hours, and so you could get 4 Doctor Who episodes, an hour and a half each, 4-parters, right? So I had, for many years, the only Doctor Who I had access to was this tape, and I had Destiny of the Daleks, the 4th Doctor one, City of Death, which is the Paris one, which is a good one, Attack of the Cybermen, which is the 6th Doctor one we haven't watched yet, and this one. And I just recorded them. I was like, oh, Daleks. I like Daleks. And I didn't really search. So I've watched this a lot. And every time I see it, I just get angry. It's not. And this is by Eric Sayward, who was a script editor through much of the 5th Doctor series and the 6th. And a lot of the other reviews mentioned they're like, we aren't sure if he likes Doctor Who. Like he doesn't. If you actually pull this episode apart, the 6th Doctor doesn't do anything. He is late showing up for the whole story,
right?
And it's the Daleks from Skaro that show up and stop Davros, and they are called in by someone else at the thing. Like, so the 6th Doctor does nothing except sort of comment on the action at one point. I also think, and you pick this out too, I think Eric Sayward, and if you read some of the novelizations he's done and some of his commentaries and stuff like that, where he talks about stuff, he thinks he's Douglas Adams. He thinks that he is a sort of witty, clever storyteller in the mold of Douglas Adams.
Right.
And he's not. It's not
turns
funny.
Out it's not. Yeah.
He's trying. It's one of those. I mean, you and I know this well, right? It's that uncomfortable thing of someone who thinks they're funny, trying to be funny and bombing. Like he's like a stand-up who's just bombing, and he just keeps going. And it's just like, so this whole episode just ends up being very unpleasant. I mean, Orsini's a little mildly interesting. I do like I like the gold and cream colored Daleks. That's kind of cool. Like like they'd been gray or got sort of gunmetal grayish for a long time, so they look kind of neat, I guess. But and supposedly this is also supposed to be based on a book by Evelyn Waugh called the Lonely Ones, something like that. Anyway, it's also something about set in a funeral home. I don't quite see it. Waugh is pretty good. I've read some of the stuff. Scoop is very funny, but yeah, it's grim. Everybody's killed. Everybody's screaming. Their limbs blown off. Davros is, it's not Doctor Who to me. It's just like, oh, this is a cynical, dark, and this was the last episode before the series was put on hiatus because the executives were just like, this is bad. And so famously, the very end is the Doctor and Perry, she's like, oh, where are we going to go from everybody's dead and fires around him and all this stuff. And she's like, where are we going to go now? He's like, oh, we'll go to someplace truly restful. And she says, no, can't we go somewhere fun? And he says, oh, fine. And he goes, okay, I'll take you to, and then the screen freezes.
Right.
He was supposed to say, I'll take you to Blackpool. And that was going to set up the next season. It was going to open at the thing. Blackpool is like a resort town in the UK. And they just were like, no, there may not be a next season, so we're just not going to say that.
So wait, you're saying this was the last before they canceled it?
They basically rested Doctor Who. It was basically a threatened cancellation. Like, oh yeah, all right.
Oh, okay.
And then they sort of retooled it, and you get Trial of the Time Lord, which comes up. And it was sort of like it's too violent, it's too dark, we need to fix it. It doesn't quite get fixed, and then they fired Colin Baker after that, and you lose the Sixth Doctor. But yeah, this is sort of the beginning of the troubles, sort of a troubled time for 1980s Doctor Who. And you get it. I just like, yeah, there must have been some executive watching and be like, this is a children's TV show, that's a beloved children's TV show. Like a guy just got his leg blown off. Like, it's like, yeah, it is not a pleasant one.
No.
That's a great review.
I don't know that I have a song in me for themes for this.
Wow, Revelation of the Daleks blew the music out of your heart.
I don't know.
Themes,
something about power, the power of the music of the themes. There, we did it together, guys.
Power of themes. It's like a Huey Lewis. Yeah.
Well, listen, we do like to look at thematic elements that are threaded throughout Doctor Who and our very lives. John, what themes did you want to talk about here?
I'd rather just forget about Revelation of the Daleks. So let's. Okay. I guess we could. Let's sum up the Amy and Rory years, right? Here we go.
Yeah.
We've obviously covered how we think it went on a bit too long, but overall, their legacy and their impact. I think the interesting thing about Amy and Rory is that you have a couple things here. You have Rose certainly started off the thing of like, oh, we'll have some touch points with their previous lives. It won't just be they get in the box, they disappear, we never see their lives again. Rose still, she kept up with Mickey, she kept up with Jackie, but there wasn't like sort of an ongoing thing. Here, obviously, there's a little bit more. You have Rory traveling with Amy, so there's the relationship in the TARDIS, which is unusual, right? Barbara, going all the way back, Barbara and Ian, there were hints that they sort of liked each other, but never explicit. But obviously here, they got married, so there's clearly a relationship going on. So there's that dynamic of them. That's definitely very new. And then you do have, this is like one of the rare moments of like, they go back to their lives, but then they get back in the TARDIS, they go back to the lives, and like there's sort of this back and forth. So they are a very different set of companions and very different dynamic for sort of a TARDIS crew. And yeah, setting aside the fact that it maybe went on a little bit too long, I like that story. I wish it ended a little bit. I wish Rory maybe hadn't died quite so many times. But there is an arc. They do develop as characters. I'll give Moffat credit for at least recognizing, to eliminate early on the plot line of, oh, she likes the Doctor more than Rory, and making him insecure about the relationship. That was a neat plot line. It was a nice story. Then she marries Rory, and Moffat's like, she's past it, and they got a few more episodes where there's sort of that tension, and then like, no, it's him.
Yeah, that was great.
So that was nice. But yeah, so ultimately, I think they're a success. Just probably could have maybe 6 episodes shorter. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. I think to date, my favorite companions, I guess they're
definitely a package deal.
Because I really love the story. I need to revisit maybe that second season. But the first season Amy arc, I'm like, that's the best season arc to me. And it didn't happen to be this companion arc, that was the arc. Thought it was great. I guess the second, so it's first season Amy, second season now Rory's with,
right,
and then this last season.
Half season, yeah.
Yeah. Definitely, I think we didn't need the half season. And while I liked the time with Rory, in fact, I really thought he was fun, I think that season also suffered from like, I don't know what the arc was, like I don't know what the arc was. So I thought the most successful was just the beginning introduction.
Yeah.
Though we didn't have Rory as much, unfortunately. But he was there some. And then, but that arc was just so great.
Mm-hmm. And a wonderful, I will say, I noticed, I was thinking about it when I was going to think about this episode. Because again, folks, we sort of actually prepare for this. I was thinking about Moffat is too smart not to have realized this. There is a really geek wish fulfillment plotline. I mean, of this, right? Which is that Karen Gillan is beautiful, incredibly attractive woman, and there is Rory is the geeky guy who's best friends with her and hangs out for a long time, and it's like she's gonna notice you, and then she does, and then it's true love after all and stuff like that. And I'm like, yeah, that is, I'm Moffat's too smart not to have been like, yeah, I'm gonna make a little bit of geek wish fulfillment, like, hey guys, if you just wait long enough, the pretty girl is gonna notice you, and you're gonna turn out to be cool. And it works, I think, because Arthur Darvill is really good, and we like Rory. He's not like this weirdo hanging around. We like Rory, and
he's right, but he is who you would see yourself as, because also remember, he is the like homebody introvert nerd. Like he's like, I just want to kind of like stay in and like not do all the stuff. And he gets the girl, so that's true. No, they serve really well as that. So ultimately, like, huge success. Maybe overstayed the welcome a little, and maybe there could have been a tighter kind of dealing with them traveling as a couple. I thought that was cool to have that. That's the first time I've had that with the NuWho, of having these two. I mean, I guess Mickey was around there. It felt like when we had the
shorter.
Yeah, shorter. That was what I was to say. When we had more than one person traveling with the Doctor, it wasn't like a real crew for an extended period of time. It's just like that would happen occasionally on shows.
Yeah.
Whereas like Rory and Amy were for an extended period of time, it's Rory and Amy with the Doctor.
Yeah.
And they were fun episodes. But yeah, I mean, I guess it just goes to show you, it's like the power of Doctor Who is that it's like you don't want to let the novelty wear off, and it's like, yeah, to some extent the novelty kind of wore off, but
I think
actors, so
I think Moffat learns, because I think what we're about to see with Clara is that Jenna Coleman stays for a while, like through a transition of doctors, and I think what Moffat does well and learns to do is she has a couple different arcs. Like there's one, the Impossible Girl arc, which we see, and then that gets resolved. And then there's a new arc. So he's just like, I'm not going to do the same thing with his character and drag it out. He's like, we'll do this thing, and then we'll do it. And they're both interesting, and they keep the character very fresh. I think actually there's several different arcs.
And by the way, you can see also how it would be tempting to kind of do, and I'm sure there, by the way, we're saying this and I'm like, there wasn't really an arc to say. I'm sure there was, and I'm sure that like the Stephen Moffat would be like, no, we did this very clear thing.
Stephen, write in if you have a problem.
But what I would say is that I could see feeling that like, hey, look, we have this great cast with great chemistry. That's it. We just need that. There's nothing, we don't need anything else. And that also could have worked too if it had just been a season of like really fun Dr. Rory Amy stories, and then we're out. Like, but I think the fact that it just kept going. Oh, the whole arc was the whole river arc. I'm sorry. Now I'm just remembering that. That was the whole thing, which again was a little ambitious and a little bit of shattered there. Like shards came in and out of that, and when it was quote resolved, it didn't feel like, and there's a bow on that. It was sort of like, oh wait, what?
Okay, that's a neat twist, I guess. I think I like that point. I think there is sort of an interesting like, do you have to now do? It's like there's a new show. It's more sophisticated writing. The companions do more than just scream at monsters. So it's like you got to give them arcs and storylines and stuff like that. And I think it's interesting to hear you say like, I mean, just kind of fine. Like we like them. They're good actors and they're fine people. So maybe they just hang out. They just go along with him, and they don't have to necessarily have like a. It
could be
story.
Fine. It just you couldn't do that forever and ever. But I think you could do a solid season, half a season. I think it was weird is that they tried to do almost a full season of that after an arc finished, and it was like, no, okay, but now we're kind of done. And then it was like, now let's just hang out a while. It's like, wait, hold on.
yeah.
Again, another downbeat ending.
Yeah.
Section. Yeah. Yeah. Well, look, on No Not the Mind Probe, which is the podcast you're listening to.
Yeah.
We also
I'm glad we did a station identification at the end.
coming in at the top of the hour, traffic on the nines. We rate the Doctor Who episodes stories. There are 300 official Doctor Who television stories.
That's right. You can put that in the bank, kids.
More in the works.
More in the works.
We have ranked 148 of them.
Ooh.
And this will bring us up to an even 150.
Yeah.
Wait, hold. Then this is the halfway point.
Oh, hey.
This episode is the halfway point. Although then they're going to make more.
Everybody.
It'll be a bit of a moving target, but at this moment and for a few months here,
right,
this will be the halfway point.
If you've kept up with us live, if you're up to date,
God bless you.
God bless you. If you listen to this anytime in the next 6 months, you're going to be at the halfway point.
Yeah. So first, let me do Angels Take Manhattan. I want to make sure we're doing the familiar Muppet play on words there.
Which is that your favorite? I love Muppet movies.
I love the Great
really
Muppet
Manhattan.
Caper. Yeah, the first.
Oh, you like the Caper? Oh.
Wait, isn't the Caper the first one? No, the Muppet movie.
Muppet
I like
movies
the first one.
First one's good. I remember seeing. I'm old enough to have seen the Muppets Take Manhattan in the theaters, and I just remember when they all get married. No, we could talk about this from the last episode of like bringing when the Sesame Street Muppets appear, the Muppet Show Muppets. That was like blew my young mind when they get married and they have little somebody's getting married. And I also remember for whatever reason they're seeing that somebody's getting married and they're all getting tuxedos and doing all the things. And there's a scene where the Cakes sing. And apparently as a child, that just blew my mind that the Cakes were singing. So I just wouldn't stop talking about the singing Cakes.
Aren't Big Bird's in the Muppet movie, right? Because he's there saying that he's going to go to New York to hit it big in public television, which is one of my favorite things. They're headed to Hollywood, and he's going to New York to hit it big in public television. Which Okay. Unfortunately, we're not going to rank the Muppet movies, but again, an additional podcast.
Although the Muppet movie and Revelation of the Daleks have very similar themes and lightness.
So, Angels Take Manhattan.
Yeah.
Again, we've talked about this, kind of worn out on the welcome, but they never get too low, these episodes. I have it 55. I have it because where I ultimately decided to put it was right next to last week's episode, The Power of Three. And I put it just above it. It could go either way, but these seem like a pair to me. So I put them
just ranking in chronological order at this point.
Yeah. No, but I just thought it's a similar place, like not the worst of this group, but definitely not the best. Just kind of middle of the road, which means pretty high overall. So out of 150, they're 55.
Yep.
Revelation of the Daleks, definitely bad. I don't have the hatred of it in the same way because of because the plot didn't even land on me. But definitely bad. And when I was looking down through, it was like, okay, we go past the bad ones that are fun.
Right.
Like I already mentioned the other Sixth Doctor one that I like, Delta and the Bannerman.
Yeah.
Well below
that's
that.
Seventh. That's Seventh Doctor. Yeah.
Sorry, Seventh Doctor. I apologize. This Doctor.
Yeah.
So then I go down again. Partly this is also now I have my own nostalgia, right? From 2.5 years ago, where it's like, well, the first even genuinely bad episodes, but they were my first genuinely bad episodes I watched, like Meglos and Vengeance on Varos. They're like funner in my mind. They're not. Like if I watch them again, I'm like, that is not enjoyable. But in my mind, I'm like, oh yeah, those okay.
No, they're more fun.
So they go below those. I ultimately got to I decided that I got to Paradise Towers, another Seventh Doctor, and I was like, no, I hated that more than this. And so I did not want to go below that. And then that actually put it right above where the last one I put above this is the Keys of Marinus. And I like that because I would say, yes, I liked that better than this.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I have it at 142 out of 150.
Fair enough. We agree on Angels Take Manhattan. I've got it number 54.
Oh, okay.
Same spot. Yeah, I think well acted. I liked some of the set pieces. I think I wish, I was like, all right, I needed a little more plot. I thought it seemed to be setting up an epic plot. I think you're right. It would have maybe been better to make this a two-parter. We could have eliminated the Western one or something like that and just made this a two-parter or something, because it would have been interesting to have to build up to a more epic plot and stuff like that. But I get, I think he's trying to work out. He had so many episodes this season. He had to do this. I wish you couldn't have it go out, I guess, on them committing suicide, but I wish like that the speeches and the moment and the connection, and it was like that was a lovely little moment, and then it's like, okay, that was reset, and oh, now we got another speech from Amy about how much she loves Rory and she's going to sacrifice, and it's like, okay, so that was a little too much. But I mean, again, saying goodbye to Amy and Rory, they I'm giving him points for that, and of course, River Song makes it makes anything fun to watch, and the dynamic with Matt Smith. Revelation of the Daleks. I don't like this one. It's rare for me to say I don't like it.
This is news. Okay, we're the
yeah.
This is a new tone. I haven't really picked this up from the episode.
This is one of those ones too. So it in the great Doctor Who sort of rankings that they did, surveys they do in Doctor Who magazine every once in a while, this one always ranks kind of high, like it's in the top 50 for people.
Really?
Because
really?
I think there's a certain subset of Doctor Who fans who are a little embarrassed. It's a kids show, and are like, I want my Doctor Who gritty and violent.
Oh, come on!
This is real, and they think, and they're sort of like, it's real satire and really funny, sort of dark satire, and it's just like, it's not. It's not. It's. Davros gets some points, and I like the new Daleks, but it's cynical and dark, and it's not joyful, and it's not Doctor Who. So this is my new bottom. This is dead last.
Wow.
150. I'm not sure anybody's going to get worse than that. We'll see how my mood goes. But I mean, like, it's below Time Lash, and even Time Lash at least has like a little bit of a, it's ridiculous and terrible, but there's like a little bit of joy and happiness to it. Vengeance on Varro's, same thing. It's like, it's not great, but there's like a little twinkle to it, I guess you could say.
So this is funny because this is in rapid succession, only about a couple episodes. I had my new 150th, which is the Gunfighters, which I just hated. That song drove me to madness. And now you have yours. So let's put these into the old supercomputer.
We're in the nadir of Doctor Who here at the moment.
That's right. And Angels Take Manhattan ends up at 46, just by Smith and Jones. Waters of Mars, 42. Earthshock. I think it's a good place for that.
It's a good spot for it.
And then we'll scroll and scroll and scroll here to the bottom. And it does not quite end at the bottom. It ends up at 148.
Mm-hmm.
So it's still trailed by Edge of Destruction and Time and the Rani. And those are pretty bad. So
yeah, those are pretty terrible.
Reasonable.
Yep.
Fear Her. It takes down Fear Her, though. And Time Lash. I mean, some real stinkers here.
Yep.
Are still above it. So that is interesting. You can see these rankings, including we mentioned, John has his. This is his new worst one.
Yeah.
And then I have one. You can go to the rankings page on mindprobe.show/rankings. You can actually filter you can order things by me or John. You can see, like, how does the season 2 veteran rank these?
Right.
How does the person
a neophyte?
Neophyte who, to be fair, is experiencing the classic who in complete random order in some ways.
Yeah, I can't believe you weren't more excited when the second Doctor came back. But anyway,
I will tell you, by the way, the 7th Doctor here is like with a bullet down here to the. Although the 6th Doctor,
the 6th can't be great. What's saving the 6th?
No, the 6th is low, and I was wrong on this.
6 is
I
way
just
lower.
thought with all these 7th Doctor ones have been so low, but no.
Well, my Curse of Fenric drags it up, and there's a few others, and we're about to get to some good 7th Doctor ones too. There's a few out there, and we like Ace. You like Ace and Delta and Band. Well, Delta is low still, but yeah, it's not looking. But the 6th Doctor just scraping the bottom of the barrel.
Woof,
and I feel bad because Colin Baker is a nice guy, and I wish he was. I wish he did better, but
yeah.
No,
he been? Has he had Big Finish kind of?
Yes, his Big Finish are great. Like, because I think he plays it the way he wants. There's better writers. He shows he's sort of a pompous ass doctor, but in like a wonderful way, like in a sort of a nice way. Like he really shows off his acting skills, and he's excellent. Like, he's just an excellent doctor, but it's like he just never got a fair shot on screen. Too bad.
By the way, looking at this, it still strikes me that you, from the episodes we've watched so far, still have the 3rd Doctor ranked as your favorite, which is not what you would have necessarily thought. And do you think that's still because there's some yet to come, or do you think that might end up being quantitatively that it ends up being maybe that Pertwee is one of your favorites?
I think so. I think the thing about Pertwee is what we're probably going to find is that they're just consistently solid. So it's the same production team across all 5 years, the same script editor, the same producer, a lot of the same directors and writers. And so I think it's just solid Doctor Who. Like even Tom Baker, they're new producers. He's on for 7 years. So new producers come in and there are a few bombs in there that probably pull him down a little bit, the fourth Doctor. But yeah, the third, I think it's just, there is a consistent, there are a few stinkers in the Pertwee era, but all of them, there's just, I think there's a consistency across all 5 years that just keep it in kind of that. And you're noticing that too. Like you've seen that you can just kind of count on, those episodes. Yeah.
And then looking at my rankings, what's interesting to me is that at this point, I have the third and the fourth Doctor's episodes that we've watched to date, because they're not complete, ranked more highly than the Ninth Doctor's episodes, which I actually really like the Ninth Doctor. I wish there was more seasons of him and stuff like that, but just some of the episodes are probably uneven there, and so that ends up being ranked a little lower. And then like my 10th and 11th Doctor are like way higher than everything else, because they just work better for me compared to the old ones. But for the third and fourth Doctor, I actually do have them overall ranked above one of the new Doctors. So see, I'm not just a total NuWho person.
No, you've got you're there's some finesse, there's some nuance in there. Yeah.
I'm nothing if not full of finesse. John, what do we have in store for next episode of this podcast?
Okay, well, the next episode we're moving on in the Matt Smith era, and Amy and Rory are back. Surprise! I wanted to.
Good. Oh, boy.
They go back and they rescue them, and then they leave again.
But what about their love? Is their love still?
It was just, everyone's like, this is really unnecessary that they depart again. If you're gonna bring them back, but then they just we're done. We're back. It's the Jenna Coleman era. The Clara Oswin Oswald era begins. So this was a weird season where they had these 5, I think, episodes, whatever. Then there was a bit of a break, and then they had, I think this is how it went, they had the Christmas episode. So this is another holiday episode. And it is Matt Smith, Clara. We have the return of Strax. And Madame Vastra, so the from Good Man Goes to War. We have Richard E. Grant, like a big time guest star in it, and Ian McKellen.
What?
Yeah, I mean, this is the stops. See the stops? They have been pulled out.
Okay, yeah.
And we have the Snowmen, and we've paired that with, and I won't explain the link yet because it's basically in the story. It's kind of a spoiler.
Okay.
But paired that with the Web of Fear, which is a second Doctor Brigadier story. This is actually the first Brigadier appearance in Doctor Who. I'm not sure if it's on BritBox or not. You might have to root around for it. This was a story that was recently recovered maybe 10 years ago, but it was missing for a long time. It's back, and there's one missing episode that they've animated. So it's going to be an interesting, but it's a 6-parter. But yes, the Web of Fear, second Doctor classic coming at you.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So
I'm ready for a new era. I'm ready.
Big
ready.
Time. It's happening.
Let's go boldly to a new era. By the way, I should have mentioned you should subscribe to us. If you're not subscribed, there's buttons on the website.
Email,
subscribe, leave a rating,
put some misogynist comments on the YouTube or whatever people do there now.
I mean, you could go a different way and put non-misogynist
comment. I think women are okay and should have equal rights. Sure.
They might be flagged by YouTube for inappropriate
they'll be like, this
content.
doesn't work with our algorithm.
That's possible.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, go to mindprobe.show.
Do it.